Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. We'll be starting in the next 2 minutes. Let's just give everyone time to join. Be ready. Cheers. All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Breeze Connect hosted PBX webinar. My name is Arthur, and I'm the Web Solutions Manager at Leader. And with me, I have Adrian, who's the Senior Voice and Infrastructure Engineer. Hey, Adrian, how are you?
Hi, Arthur. Well, and yourself? Hi, everyone.
Doing great. So yeah, I'm sure all of you are already aware that we launched hosted PBX last week, and would like to thank everyone who shared their feedback and love the solution. Now, before we get started, just want to mention that all the attendees of the webinar today will get their partner commissions bumped up to 15%, and the ones who are already at 15% will get a chance to win Yearling BH72 Live. All right, so before I start with the presentation, just want to make sure that you all can hear me and see my screen. So if you can drop in a message in the questions tab, perfect, awesome. All right, let's get started now. Now, what is a PBX autophone system? Now, PBX stands for Private Branch Exchange, and by definition, it is a business telephone system that offers multiple inbound and outbound lines, call routing, voicemail, and call management features. Now, there are multiple PBXs out there in the market that are catered to large businesses. Now, for small and medium-sized businesses, it becomes a huge problem as they must ensure that the IT infrastructure is up to date. They have upgraded the outdated software. They're following the best security practice and are complying with regulations. Also, they need to ensure that they're maintaining disaster recovery policies. And all of this involves spending a lot of money and effort. Now, how does Breeze Connect solve the problem or fill the gap with hosted PBX? So first of all, hosted PBX is easy to set up and manage. We have a user-friendly portal that's built in a way that makes it easy for the user to build their call flow. The setup process is intuitive and takes 10 minutes to set up a customer account with their complete call flow. Now, this is beneficial, for someone who is new to selling VoIP, as this solution doesn't require you to have an extensive knowledge of the domain. Now, another benefit of hosted PBX is massive cost savings. Now, partners do not need to invest money into PBX hardware, software, and licenses because your entire phone system is hosted and managed by Breeze Connect. You only pay for the services you need and don't have to worry about maintenance and licensing. Now, there are time-saving costs as well with Breeze Connect. Uh, you don't have to worry about investing a lot of time when setting up hosted PBX. Now, on a typical PBX, office expansion entails ordering the hardware, booking an appointment with the technician to analyze the call flow requirements, which can take anywhere from a few days to a few weeks. On hosted PBX, setup is quick and easy, provisioning is instant and implemented on a graphical user interface, which is accessible via your desktop computer. Now, adding a phone or 20 new extensions take only a few minutes because it is all software based. Scalability. Now, businesses grow and contract all the time. With in-house PBX, you reserve resources and pre-allocate space for future expansion, which means you pay for unutilized resources which may or may not be required in the future. Now, hosted PBX can easily scale to meet your usage capacity as your demand increases or decreases. You can start small and grow number of users as your business expands. Now with Breeze Connect hosted PBX, there is increased redundancy and disaster recovery. Now, unlike your old PSTN, which relies on fixed copper lines susceptible to damage from vandalism, local hardware failures, or power outages, hosted PBX depends on the internet and is managed by Breeze Connect. Breeze Connect has a highly redundant infrastructure with dedicated resources, servers in multiple data centers, which are peering with multiple transit providers around Australia. Now let's have a look at some of the hosted PBX features. The first one is a call queue. I'm sure all of you are already aware what a call queue is, but those of you who do not know, when your customers call your business and all your agents are busy, they line up in a call queue where they wait to be connected to your next available agent, who will handle the call. The next feature is ring groups. Now, a ring group is a group of extensions that shares incoming calls and are based on different ringing strategies. For example, simultaneous ringing strategy. So in simultaneous ringing strategy, a call is routed to all group members and all phones start ringing until a group member answers the call. The next feature is auto attendant. Auto attendant is also known as a virtual receptionist, and it is a term which is commonly used in telephony to describe a voice menu system. Now, you must be familiar with press 1 for sales, press 2 for marketing kind of message. So that's the message that you hear at the beginning of a call. So that's basically an auto attendant. Now, other features are extensions. So extensions are users and their phones. Then you have call forwarding. Then there is call screening feature. There you have customizable music on hold. There is override identity, which is basically the setting to set your outbound call ID. Then you have the call recording feature, which means that you can record all calls for the user. Then you have time switching. So the time switching feature allows you to configure call destinations based on time of the day. Then you have fax to email, and then there is voicemail to email. So voicemail to email is basically you get the voicemail file or a WAV file sent to your email. Now let's do a little bit of comparison between a Breeze hosted PBX and a traditional PBX. Now the first difference is the cost of maintaining a PBX. A Breeze Connect hosted PBX, with Breeze Connect hosted PBX, you're only paying for the plan fees, and there are no overhead expenses. With a traditional PBX, you're paying the license cost, you're paying for hosting or hardware cost, you're also paying the SIP trunk charges. Now, this brings us to a second differentiating factor, With Breeze Connect hosted PBX, you have a single management portal to manage everything. With traditional PBX, there are different management portals for SIP trunks, PBX hosting, PBX management, and license management. Now, hosted PBX portal is accessible 24/7 from anywhere in Australia. So if you have to make any changes to customer setup, you can do it from anywhere, anytime. Now, for a traditional PBX setup, you have to gain remote access to the PBX for any maintenance tasks. With hosted PBX, it is easy to configure and set up, whereas the traditional PBXs, they have a complex learning curve. Now let's look at the pricing comparison between the two kinds of PBXs. So the first pricing comparison model that we have here is the pay-as-you-go pricing model for 5 users. With hosted PBX, each pay-as-you-go user is charged $5.50. And that basically means that for 5 users, you're paying $27.50. If you're using an auto attendant, you pay $2.95. If you're using a call queue, you pay $4.95. And the total cost comes up to $35.40 per month. Now with traditional PBXs, there is a license cost. Now, if you have small number of users, that license cost gradually increases because with them there is no per user charge. However, there is a huge license charge. So that usually comes down to $57 per user approximately. Then there is a monthly hosting charge, which is approximately $15. And then there is a SIP trunk plan subscription charge. And in this case, we have considered 4-line pay-as-you-go, which costs around $24. And the total cost that comes up for traditional PBX is that of $96. So that basically means that there is a difference of $60. Difference in total cost is that of approximately $60. So you're saving $60 with hosted PBX per month. Now, if we do a comparison, for a plus plan for 5 users. So for hosted PBX, each plus user is charged $33, which means for 5 users, it is $165. For if you're using an auto attendant, you pay $2.95. If you're using a call queue, you're paying $4.95. So the total cost for hosted PBX is going to be $172.90. Now, in traditional PBX, the cost that we looked at, the things that are charged for a traditional PBX, that is the license cost, which is again $57 per user. There's a monthly hosting charge, which is again approximately $15. And then in this case, we have considered the SIP trunk plan to be 3-line plus plan, which is $177. Now, in this case, the total comes up to be $249. So again, the difference between the two total costs is that of approximately $70 to $80. And that's how much you save by using hosted PBX. Now, how do partners generate revenue from Breeze Connect? For partners, we have an ongoing commission structure, and the percentage of which is dependent on the tier that they are on. So if you are a new partner, you start at 7.5%. You can bump up these commissions to 15% by either getting 3CX certified or by generating more revenue with Breeze Connect. So if your customer spend is more than $5,000, you straight away get bumped up to 15% commission tier. Now, as I mentioned earlier as well, all the attendees of today's webinar will get their partner commissions increased to 15%. If your partner commission is already 15%, you have a chance to win a Yearling headset. Now, for those of you who aren't already Breeze Connect partners, you can join our partner program. You can sign up for it by going on to breezeconnect.com.au/sign up. Now, how can Breeze Connect help partners? Our team at Breeze Connect provides technical support to all our partners. All members of our team are high skilled and are 3CX advanced, SSCS certified, Yearling certified, and Microsoft certified. We also assist our partners with building pre-sale solutions to help them acquire more and more customers. Now, to make the whole experience seamless for the partners who are new to the platform, we have made training videos available on the Leader Academy. Plus, we have a plethora of documentation and articles made available on our support portal. Our team also offers pre-configuration services to our partners. Now, pre-configuration service is a paid service. In this service, we configure everything for the partner or the customer, which essentially makes the whole setup plug and play. Now, one team completes a board. That's what our team offers. So our team is all about learning and developing powerful and cost-effective solutions for our customers and partners. So if a partner wants to reach out to Breeze Connect, they can do so by submitting a ticket to help.breezeconnect.com.au. They can send us an email at help@breezeconnect.com.au or sales@breezeconnect.com.au, or give us a call at 1300-127-339 or at 0870785300. Now, this brings us to the end of the slide presentation. What we'll be doing now is we'll be moving on to the demonstration. And after the demonstration, we'll be addressing all the questions that are there in chat. So now Adrian will demonstrate how hosted PBX works, how you can create a customer, extension, and all those things, and all the features that we talked about.
Perfect. Thank you, Arthur. Thank you for the presentation. Guys, just give me a few seconds just to get my screen shared for you guys. Great. Just want to make sure everyone can hear me and see my screen. So if I can just get a virtual thumbs up or a yes in chat, just to make sure everyone's there. Perfect. Okay, you see the yeses coming in. Cool. So you guys will see, for those of you that's already Breeze Connect partners and have access to the portal and have been selling SIP trunking services, it will look very familiar. In fact, if any of you provisioned a customer within the last, I would say 2 to 3 weeks, you might have noticed that when you try to add a customer, you now have the option to select whether it's a SIP trunking customer or a hosted PBX customer. So this has actually been available in the portal for the past few weeks. But today we'll sort of cover that in a bit more detail and guide you guys through the whole setup process and explain what are some of the features and stuff that we have to offer in the Breeze Connect portal or in the hosted PBX portal. So what I'm going to do here is just log in. So this will be your standard portal.breezeconnect.com.au that you log in with your standard username and password that you've set up. So once you log in, you'll get to your home page or your summary page where you can view details about your account specifically, as well as your partner commissions, but I'm not going to touch on that. So I just want to navigate directly to customer section. So again, what I've been referring to is you would recently have noticed that when you click add customer, you now have the option to create either a SIP trunking customer or a hosted extension or hosted PBX customer. So this will be the one that we're focusing on today. So in order to create the customer, you will navigate to your customers page, add customer in the bottom right corner, and then select hosted extension. So this should look very familiar to existing partners, to new partners. This will be a step-by-step wizard that you will navigate through in order to provision your first customer. So our portal is integrated with some online services like ABN lookups, as well as Google location services to help out with address details. So as far as the first step in creating a new customer, what you want to do is type in your customer name. So this will automatically sort of trigger a search in the ABN database to see if it can find that business, if it's a registered business. If it's not a major train smash, you do have the option to just go and say, click here to manually enter the business details. So if it's not a registered business, don't worry, you can still continue. You just have to provide the information manually. So once you select your customer in the list, you can select. So it's going to pre-fill some details, but you still have to provide your training name as well as your display name. Something that you'll notice in the bottom in the display name section is I have a little green tick. Now, a display name has to be globally unique to the system. Right, so if you try to type in a customer name that already exists, right, you'll get a nice red X to say, unfortunately, that name is already taken. So you'll have to tweak that until you get the green tick. So green means go. Once we're happy with the details that we've supplied, we can hit next, which will take us to the next step. So in here, we just complete the primary contact for this customer that we set up. It's very important that the details provided here is as accurate as possible, because that's something that the Breeze Connect team might also use to reach out to the customer in the event of a query or a support query or something that pops up, or if we need to contact the customer on the partner's behalf, if the partner requests that. Anyway, the point that I'm trying to make here is that the primary contact here should be someone of the business, or the person that we would need to get in contact with if we need to discuss something about this account. So the next step would be to add the address. So again, this is sort of integrated into Google services. So you can just type in partial address. It's going to bring up some options for you, and you can just from the list select the address that you want to use. So once you've selected the address, you can click next. Before I click next, I just want to briefly touch on the address part here. It's very important that you select the address for the customer location as accurately as possible. And this has to do with the IP&D database. So for those that's not aware, the IP&D database is a national database in which there's records of numbers linked to addresses. So, and this is used for cases where customers make calls emergency services. So emergency services can look up the address that's assigned to that DID to send out response teams in case of emergency. So we try to maintain these records as far as possible, but obviously we ultimately use at the end of the day what you as the partner provide when you sign up the customer. So if you provide an address that's not an accurate address in those emergency cases, that can lead to a bit of a disaster if emergency services, end up sending response teams to the wrong location. So what we want to ask you is that you try as far as possible to provide as accurate as possible address information for the customer account. So once you've selected the address, you hit next, which brings us to the credit limit. So credit limit, you can view this as like a credit card. So how does a credit card work? You get a credit card, you have a certain amount of credit. Once you've used up all the credit, you can no longer use that credit card to buy something. Now you need to start paying back what you've used in order to free up some credit. That's the same principle here. So you as the partner will set a credit limit for your customer, and that is the ceiling or the top limit that your customer can reach. Once they hit the credit limit, right, that is going to limit some of their services. So, and when I say limit services, any type of action that the customer performs that incurs a charge will not be possible because they've hit that limit. So ultimately what needs to happen is they would either have to pay their invoice or pay a partial amount of the invoice, but via payment, they will need to reduce their balance so that they have credit left to spend again on, let's say, making calls. Now, what we usually suggest is if you can figure out what the customer's average spend is, then you'll take that value and you'll multiply that by 2 to 3 times, and you'll set that as the credit limit. So as an example, if the customer's expected average spend a month is going to be $100, then you want to make it something like 100 to 250. I would say 250 would be a viable, number to use there. So this is all, again, it's not hard science or a hard and fast rule. If the customer's expected spend is going to be $100, there's no point in making the credit limit $10,000, right? Because they're never going to reach that. But in the event of toll fraud, which is why we have the setting in place, they can reach that credit limit, which is also going to lead to a disaster, because at the end of the day, those call charges made under those toll fraud conditions needs to be covered one way or the other. So this is sort of a way to limit the customer spend, but it's more of a protection mechanism that's put in place in the event of toll fraud, so that it doesn't rack up a massive bill at the end of the month. So again, somewhere in the 2 to 3 times expected range would be more than sufficient for a customer. So once you've set the credit limit, you'll get to your summary page. So the summary page is just going to highlight everything that you've provided throughout the wizard. So you can just have a final glance to make sure the information is correct. Once you're happy with the information, you hit next, and this will go and provision your customer. So we can see new customer account created successfully. you have the option to just close the window or navigate to the new customer. I'm just going to close the window. So there I can see under my customers page, I have one customer added. So there's my new customer. So a bit of details that you can see from this list. So if you have multiple customers, you will see multiple customers in the list. What you'll notice that if you have both hosted and standard SIP trunking customers, if you look at the account type, you will notice there's hosted, and for normal SIP trunking customers, you'll be able to see SIP trunking. So on the customers list page, you'll easily be able to identify between your customers that's SIP trunking customers and customers that's hosted PBX. So what I'm going to do now is open up the customer that we've just created. So this will take me to the summary page, and this will be your sort of management console, if you will, to manage this customer. So on the summary page, you will have details as the customer's name, what their current account balance is, what's the billing information, address detail, who's the primary contact, and then something that is new, which is also something that if you haven't noticed that on the SIP trunking side, we've added a global caller ID setting. So I'll discuss in a minute how that works. I just want to quickly navigate through the card. If there's some of these cards, you'll be able to update and edit information. Right, so if you want to, for instance, change the display name, you can change the display name if you want to. If you want to edit the credit limit, you can do this. And this is something that's very important as well to know that you can change this, because if in the event the customer hits the credit limit and it's not due to toll fraud, you can quickly log into the portal. You can increase the credit limit to, let's say, 150, which will immediately bring that customer online again. Right? And then at that point, you can just discuss with the customer payment in order to reduce the balance, or just have the credit limit increased because they might in a month spend more than what you expected. But it is important to know that you can actually go and adjust that credit limit after the fact. And if a customer hits the credit limit, you can quickly get them online by just increasing this limit. Now, if you know that it's like a random thing that happened, it's not usually that their spend would be that much, but let's say they're running a campaign in that month, what you can do is you can just, instead of increasing the credit limit, you can just do a temporary increase and then set a date to which that credit limit, that temporary increase will basically expire. So that means just for this month where there's an expected usage to be more, you can temporarily increase it, set a date in which that credit will then fall back to its standard credit limit, and you're sorted. But do know that you do have options to change that. As far as the addresses, if the customer moves, you can just quickly update the address details if you wish to, and you can also update the primary contact if that should change for the business. And then that brings us to the caller ID setting. So the thing is, with the SIP trunking services, you set the caller ID on the trunk itself. That's if you want to use the Breeze portal to do that, or you can do it generally from the PBX that you're going to use, right? So now in this instance, this platform is the PBX. So we wanted to give you the option to set this globally for all of your extensions, as it can become a tedious task if you have to do this per extension. Because just imagine setting up a customer and there's 20 extensions that you need to create, and now you need to manually set the caller ID for each extension. That can be a tedious task. So what we can do here is we can actually say, well, you know what, I want to set a global identity. So unless specified otherwise, I want to make sure that if anyone calls from this customer account, that is the outbound CLI that's displayed. Now, again, of your 20 extensions that you potentially create, if there is one or two users that would like to show a different CLI, that's not a problem. You can configure that at the extension itself. But this is just sort of like a global catch-all rule that if you do forget to set that per extension, everyone will still display a caller ID when they make a call out. So this has also been made available on the SIP trunking side for those of you that have multiple SIP trunks. If you just want to have like a fail-safe outbound CLI, you can set that, but you can also set it specifically at the trunk level as well. So that's it for the summary page. Nothing really extra to discuss here. Moving over to the extensions. So here's where you would create the extension. So as Arthur mentioned in the presentation, your extension will be what is ultimately linked to a user, and that will also be registered to a phone or a soft phone, if you will. And that is the account that the user will use to make and receive calls. All right. So if a customer has 20 users and every user requires a phone, you will ultimately end up creating 20 extensions. Right? There are some cases where you might want to create less or more if you want to share an extension between multiple users, but for keeping it simple, generally a extension equals a user, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a user. So the first user that I'm going to create, you'll see there's some details, description for this extension, name, billing reference, and then the actual owner details of the extension. We pre-fill the extension number for you, and you'll notice that if you click on the extension number and you try to change it, it does allow you to change it, but there's a specific range in which you need to operate, which is from 100 to 599. So that ultimately gives you the ability to add about 500 extensions, which I think is more than sufficient for most cases. So if you really need to create more than that, feel free to reach out to us, but for the most part, we believe that that would be sufficient. And for each extension that you create, it will auto increment the extension number. So it defaults to 100. So something that you'll notice is that on the extension itself, you can add a description, and then you'll see there's a field that's name/billing reference. Now it might feel to you that, hey, why am I supplying the same information, twice? It feels a bit redundant. That is because the description is generally for you as the partner to be able to identify this extension in the portal, right? So that's more for you to identify the elements or objects that you're working with. The name/billing reference field, that is what will be printed on the invoice at the end of the day. So what you as the partner want to see in the portal and what the customer wants to see on the invoice itself might not always be the same thing. So we wanted to give you the ability to actually set that so that you have a way to identify it in the portal and the customer is happy with the info that's displayed on the invoice. And you also notice that the name billing reference field is an optional field. So if you don't specify this on the invoice itself, it will just print the extension number as this is the extension number and whatever charges are associated with that. But once you've completed the extension details, you can select next, which brings us to the address section again. Now you might say, Adrian, well, I've already supplied the address. Why do I need to do this again? Let's just put this in perspective. You're sitting with a hosted solution. You're sitting with a customer that doesn't necessarily have a single branch, right? They might have a main branch, they might have a few satellite branches, and they might have some people working from home as well. So that means that you have multiple users spread across various locations using the service. I'm coming back to that IP&D emergency database scenario that I discussed earlier. We're taking the address per user because a user sitting at home, when they make an emergency call, they're not necessarily at the office, right? They're operating from home. So again, emergency services need to be able to send a response team to the appropriate address. So to try to make this as easy as possible, it will always default to the address that you've assigned when you created the customer. But if for whatever reason that extension is used at a different location, you do have the option just to enter a new address for that location. Right, so using the little Google built-in tool, type in the address that you're looking for, select it from the list, and you can just say next, and that will assign that address. For now, I'm sticking to the default, so I'll sell next, and then we get to the plans page. So there was a question previously asking, like, do we have the option to create a mix and match of extensions? You most definitely do. That's one of the things that we kept in mind when we designed the portal, is that we want you to have the flexibility and ability to create multiple extensions and assign the appropriate plans for the use of that extension. So what's a scenario that you would apply this in? So let's take a business as an example. Let's take Breeze Connect. We have a support team and we have a sales team. Now, on the support side, we're more likely to receive calls than make calls, whereas on the sales side, we're more likely to make calls than receive calls. So how I would set this up is, for all of my support staff, I will create extensions and I will use the pay-as-you-go plan, because this means lower monthly subscriptions. However, you are charged per call that you make. So that just means, well, I don't really care about the charges per call I make, because the extensions that will be using this plan will mostly be receiving calls. So that means low monthly subscription, and I receive mainly inbound calls on the pay-as-you-go. However, on the sales side, I'm expecting my salespeople to make X amount of calls per day. Therefore, I want to sort of predict what my charges can be, or limit the charges in some way, shape, or form. And that's why I would assign plus to them, because at plus, you have a higher monthly subscription charge for that extension. However, majority of your calls will be included. Now, when I say majority, I mean that all of your calls are included, including mobile. However, there are fair use policies on the amount of mobile minutes. So we are throwing around the idea of adding mobile packs and stuff for extensions for this. You don't currently see that in the portal, but there is a discussion internally about making these available. So just note, when you do select plus, all of the calls are included, including mobile, but there is a limitation of mobile minutes that's included. Once you exceed the mobile minutes, then it's standard rates that apply for mobile calls. And then also with both of these, you have the option to opt in whether you want call recording or, well, no call recording or call recording. And you'll be able to see the price for call recording as well. So once you've selected your plan that's used for this extension, you can hit the next button, which will give you a bit of a summary page of all of the information that you've selected. And you'll notice because we selected pay as you go, outbound calls are charged individually. We do supply a bit of a rate card just to give an idea of what your call rates will be. So you can review that. We didn't opt to include call recording, so I can see for this extension specifically, my monthly fee is going to be $550. So once I've confirmed I'm happy with the settings, I'll just create the new extension and we're done. Cool. So there I've created my first extension. So what's next? Once we've created our extension, we ultimately want to register this extension to a device so that the end user can use it. So before I jump through each of the tabs, just to briefly explain what's going on there, I'm just going to focus on the provisioning bit quickly. So I want to draw your attention to the card here that's in red. So this card currently shows that the trunk, or the, sorry, not the trunk, but the extension is unregistered. So what I want to do is register this to a device. So I have on my desk with me, I have a Yealink T53W phone. So the reason I have this phone with me is I need to get the MAC address of this device in order to do the auto provisioning bit. Now, what you'll notice is that I'm accessing the phone physically via the web browser to get the MAC address, but the MAC address is also on the back of the phone and it's also on the box that it comes with. So there's various methods for you to get the MAC address, but in order to use the auto provisioning, you need to get the MAC address of the device. So now that I have the MAC address of my device, I'll just navigate to the Devices tab. So on my Devices tab for this extension, I will click Add Device. I'll select my model from the list, so Yealink T53W, put in the MAC address, and then I'll give this phone a description. So this will be the label that's on the phone itself. So once I'm happy with the information, as I said, it's not much information that you need to supply. Select your phone, put in your MAC address, put in the name of the device, and then add the device. Now, I'm pretty sure there's going to be a few questions that pop up about the provisioning and the devices that's supported. We do only have a select few Yealink devices for auto provisioning. That doesn't mean that that's the only devices that works with hosted PBX, right? Almost any device that conforms to RFC, normal SIP RFC standards, will be able to register an extension and use that extension. Now, we've only made a select few devices available initially for the auto provisioning, but we are definitely planning on adding more Yealink devices, and we're also in the process of doing the development for Fanvil as well. Now, I'm pretty sure there's multiple partners using multiple devices. Unfortunately, we're not able to add all of that at once, but we're definitely putting a lot of effort in developing and expanding on the devices that we make available. So just to come back to what we're busy with, once the device is added, you'll see there's a bit of a summary page for the device as well. So we get details of the device, and there's a nice little label that tells us that the device is currently not provisioned. So how do we go about provisioning the device? Very simple. Once the device is added, you'll notice that on the center card that I'm highlighting now, there's a PIN. So all you have to do is you have to take that PIN and you just have to punch it in on the phone. So when I say that, I'm just showing a quick video here, but I'm going to physically do this on my desk as well. So this Yealink phone that I'm currently using, right, once you've added the device, all you have to do is plug the device into the network. So you'll see currently it says network unavailable. So it's busy connecting to the network, going through its process, getting an IP. Once it has its IP address, I want you to take note. If you look on the phone there, you'll notice that by default out of the box, this key is mapped to history, right? So once this phone now actually signs or checks in with RPS, it will go and update that button to provision. So you'll see there it says config update. And now the history button has changed to provision. So all that needs to happen now is you literally just have to press the provision button on the phone and type in that PIN. So I'm going to do that exact process with the phone that's next to me. Actually just need to plug it in. Just a second. All right, so that phone just needs to boot up quickly, then I'll demonstrate that. But let's just carry on with the video. So within this example, you'll see I have my my PIN on my screen, and I just go back to my phone, press the provision button, type in my provisioning PIN, submit, and then you'll get a message. This device is now provisioned and ready for use. Perfect. And then you can see the account is registered on the device. So very straightforward. While I'm waiting for this phone next to me to boot up, just to give you guys a bit of an idea of what's happening in the background, when you add the device on the portal, what's happening is we're actually sending a request off to Yealink RPS to add an entry for this MAC address. And then we're supplying it the Breeze Connect, what we call the Breeze Connect DPS server, which is our device provisioning server. So once the phone boots up, it checks into Yealink RPS, and then it goes and retrieves information from our Breeze DPS server, and that's what gives the provisioning button on the phone. So once the provisioning button is on the phone, so currently it is on mine, as I said, you click on the provision button, you type in the PIN, 822050 is what I can see on my screen, and I get the devices provisioned. So now, if I just refresh this page, I can now see it says provisioned. And if I go back to the summary page of the extension, this card that was previously red is now green. So now my extension is actually provisioned on the phone, and I now have the ability to make calls. The only reason I'm not able to receive calls yet is because I don't have a DID assigned to this extension yet. So that's the next step that we're going to go to. So just to briefly touch, summary page is just going to give you basic information of the extension itself. The most important bit would probably be the registration card. Green, good, red, bad. So if it's red, you need to figure out why it's not registering. But when it's registered, it's going to be green. The DIDs page, very straightforward. You have the option to add a DID to the extension. Now, again, if your customer has their own numbers and you're porting across, that's not an issue. We can port the numbers across for hosted PBX, similar to the way we do for SIP trunking. If it's a new customer and they don't have existing numbers, you can look in the Breeze pool to grab a number from there. If you don't find anything in the Breeze pool that you like, you're more than welcome to contact our support guys, and they will order numbers for you from our carriers. All right, so select the DID, add, and it's done. All right, so now we have an extension that's registered via auto provisioning on a device, and we have a DID. So that means this extension is now ready to make calls and receive calls, and can be used with various other features in the system, i.e. ring groups, call queues, auto attendants. So just to finish off with the extension itself, so we've just added the DID. The billing tab allows you to edit the plan. So if at the middle of the month you decide, hey, you know what, this guy's actually making more calls than what I was anticipating, not a problem. You just hit the edit button and you change to whatever plan you want to. So you're not limited to, or strict to that once you've selected the plan for the extension, that you actually need to stick with that plan for a certain amount of time. If you want to change it on a weekly basis, you can change it on a weekly basis, because the system will prorate all of the charges. So it will figure out automatically the time the extension was pay-as-you-go and the time the extension was plus, and also the minutes for plus that's been used up in terms of your included mobile minutes. So you do have an option to change that on the fly. Inbound settings. So inbound settings will just alter the behavior of incoming calls to the extension. So you have your answer mode, which will by default ring forward voicemail. So it would attempt to ring the extension. If no one answers, it will attempt to forward the call. If there's no forwarding configure, it will then go to voicemail, and then you can access the voicemail. As I said, you do have the option to change this behavior. There's various scenarios to just ring only, forward only, ring then forward, or just go to voicemail straight, or ring then voicemail. So various options that you can select from. The call forwarding is very straightforward. So you will select, in the event that no one answers the phone, I just want the call to forward to an external number or to another extension, right? Depends on where you want to send it to. And then ultimately, you can also control the inbound flow via the use of your call screening rules. So this, I always see this as like a firewall filter rule, right? So what you're basically saying is when the call comes from a specific source and it goes to a specific number on the extension during a specific time, it needs to perform a specific action, right? So as an example, if I just configure a rule that says any caller to any number on this extension at any time, and I set it to reject, what's happened now is I've now created a rule that says any inbound call to this extension should just be rejected. And this overrides whatever the default behavior is. All right, so be very careful with the rule that you set up here. But this is very useful if you want to do a bit of time-based routing for an extension, or if there's a specific number that's spamming an extension, you can create a rule to reject only calls coming from that specific DID. So it's very flexible in what you can achieve with this, as long as you understand that these rules, the actions for these rules, sort of supersede the default answer mode. But inbound tab allows you to manipulate the inbound settings a bit. Your outbound tab, pretty straightforward. So there's your caller ID setting. As I mentioned earlier, we've now added the ability to globally specify what is the outbound CLI. So for this extension, because it's not set at the extension level, it's inheriting from the customer level, right? So just to sort of take you back to where that was set, if you go to the summary page for the customer, there's a global caller ID setting that you can set. But if you want to set it at the extension level outbound settings, you can actually overwrite those settings. Right, so now it will ignore what is set at the customer level, and it's going to display that number for outbound. Right, if I don't want that, I can just switch back, and it will again use what was set at customer level. Very important that you need to make sure the numbers that you use here should actually be legitimate numbers the customers own. Yes, that also counts for if it's an importing process coming over to Breeze Connect, it's fine, you can use it, but you have to provide proof of ownership for the number that you're using there, and whichever number you're using there, any return call should be answered, right? Whether it's at least just to an IVR, but you can't put a random number in there that is not a number that you're own, right? Not allowed to do that. Anyway, moving away from that, call barring. You also have call barring because this is our staging environment. I don't have the rules in here, but by default, we go and block international calls. So if you want to allow the extension to make international calls, you can go and edit and make those changes for call barring. And then you have your call logs. This will allow you to view the call logs for this specific extension. So you can specify your date ranges and filter based on that. And you'll also notice that if you opted to include call recording, right? So if you have call recording enabled for the extension, how you would access it is at the call logs tab. So as it will list your call logs, you'll have a download button for calls that are recorded. So you download them directly from the call logs tab. And then lastly, we just have the devices tab again, which is the provisioning that I showed you guys earlier on. So that sort of covers the extension bit. Moving over to ring groups. So as Arthur mentioned in the slides, ring group is basically a collection of extensions. And then once a call comes into the ring group, it can ring in various scenarios. So it can ring the extensions either simultaneously, or it can ring them in a specific order, least use. So there's various options. So just to show you how to create this, so you'll go to ring groups, you'll add your ring group. Again, your ring group number is assigned by default. If you want to change it, again, there's a limitation of 100 ring groups. So I'm sure that's pretty sufficient for most setups, but it has to be in that range. So that will also automatically get generated and increment as you add additional ring groups. So add the ring group, here's your sequence. So you can say any extension in my ring group, it needs to ring them in a specific order. It needs to ring them randomly. It needs to ring them simultaneous or least use. So this gives you a bit of options to design a call flow. For this example, I'll just use simultaneous. By default, what's going to happen is as a call comes into the ring group, it's going to show the caller's number and the ring group name. You do have the option to change that as well. And then you have a description. So you can just say, you know what, this is going to be the support ring group. So happy with that. Next, then select the plan. So not to go into too much detail here, but we are planning on adding additional plans in the future for ring groups, and those are pretty much just tied to the amount of channels that's going to be available through each ring group. So we'll have our summary page for ring groups, create, and our ring group is created. Perfect. So from here, we can open up the ring group. And then you'll see we have similar options that we have for extensions. Now we are a bit pressed for time, so I'm not gonna really go into detail on each of them, but you can again add your DIDs. Your billing tab is gonna allow you to change the plans if there are different plans for the specific service. Your inbound settings, again, is very similar to the extension, so you can change the ring behavior for calls coming in and whether you want to forward certain calls, and then also call screening if you want to really dive down into particular or specific scenarios where you want to do some bit of time-based routing or different behaviors if the caller numbers are different, right? So there's a few options available for the call screening here. Outbound tab is just going to be your caller ID. Again, the reason you have to have a caller ID for a ring group is if you do opt to forward calls to external numbers, it's an outgoing call, so it has to display a proper CLI. You can set that specifically for the ring group. Call logs will show you the call logs for the ring group itself. And then the most important bit would be your extensions part, right? So this is where you would actually go and add the extensions to your ring group. Now, for the demonstration, I've only created one extension, but your list of extensions will appear in the assign extension to ring group page. So you just select the extension, and then you'll have options specific to the extension as well. So you can either say ring. If you select ring, then you have options to have a delay before the phone actually rings, and you can control how long the phone rings. So if you have multiple phones, you can have ring delays, and you can have a specific extension only ring for a certain amount. I probably would just use permanently enabled. So that means this extension is active permanently in this ring group. So if a call comes in, it's going to ring that extension. And then you also have ignore follow me voicemail. This is just to say that if a call comes into the ring group and goes to the extension, you don't want it, if that extension doesn't answer, you don't want it to hit the voicemail, right? Because you just want the phone to ring. So for safety, majority of the time as you build your call flow, any phone that you put in a ring group, you'll have the ignore follow me voicemail option enabled. So that would just ignore that extension's forwarding and voicemail settings. So I can just hit confirm. And there we have it. My ring group is finished. So I have a ring group and I have my extension in my ring group, and it's set to ring all the extensions simultaneously. So again, if you have multiple extensions that you add, you just click the add button and you select them from the list. Those that are already in the ring group will say already assigned. Perfect. Then call queues. Call queues are, so there's something that I do want to mention when it comes to call queues. There's a bit of prerequisites when it comes to using a call queue. Number one, in order for you to create a call queue, you have to create a ring group first. So if no ring group exists, you can't create a call queue. And then the second thing that I want to mention when it comes to call queues is, in order for you to route a call to a call queue, you have to create an auto attendant, right? So let's go with step one. Let's create the call queue. So from the call queues page, I'll add a call queue. So you'll see there's the hunt group that we've created previously. So I'll select the hunt group. So that means this call queue that I'm creating is linked to the ring group that I've created. So you see the problem there. If there's no ring group, that list is empty, so you can't add a call queue. And then you have some basic settings for the call queue. So announce the number of callers ahead of time in queue. So yes, I want the person that's currently sitting in the queue to hear their position. If you want to announce an estimated wait time, you can check that as well. And also add the interval between announcements. So if you know your staff is handling a call on average 2 minutes, you can say, well, the average handle is 2 minutes, and I want to announce that every 2 minutes. So for the time the user sits in the call queue, every 2 minutes, they're going to hear, look, the expected wait time is going to be 2 minutes, and that will repeat every 2 minutes for the time that they sit in there. So this requires you to know sort of what is the average handle time for that particular ring group, because it's not exact science here. You just have to put that information in there. And then also, if you want to play your own music on hold while they sit in the queue, you do have the option to upload your own music on hold as well. So once we have all of that information, we hit confirm, and it's done. So there's not really much in terms of configuring the call queue other than what I've just showed you. But that does bring me to the second prerequisite of using the call queues, is that the only way to route a call into a call queue is to go via an auto attendant. So if you have a DID assigned directly to the ring group and you dial the DID, it's not going to go through the call queue, right? Unfortunately, our system is designed in such a way that in order to get a call into a call queue, it has to go via an auto attendant. So that's the next bit that we're going to jump into, is creating the auto attendant. So auto attendant details, I'm just going to call this Breeze main IVR. Again, if you want to add a billing reference, you can do so, but it's optional. Choose my address, and then select the plan. Similar to the ring group, what we're going to do is in future, we'll make more plans available, and those plans are directly tied to the amount of channels that we make available to the service. So for more details on what the current plans and costs are, they are in the portal, but if you want to, you can also go to the Breeze Connect website where we'll list the information. But yeah, select the plan, so you get the summary page for your auto attendant. So create. Cool. So there we have our auto attendant created. We have a summary page. Again, you'll see the same sort of pattern as to the previous accounts. So you have a summary page that gives you summary information about the service, your DIDs, which will allow you to manage the DIDs for the service, your billing tab, which allows you to change the plans for the service, call logs, so you can view the calls for the service, and then auto attendance itself. This is where the magic happens. So this is where you would go and create the call flow in the IVR. So by default, you'll see it always creates this with this parent/root IVR. You cannot change or delete this. This is what you need to edit as your first IVR. But you do have the option to add additional IVRs if you're creating like multi-level IVRs, where you have, press 1 for accounts, and then as you press 1 for accounts, you actually go into another IVR that says, press 1 for debtors and press 2 for creditors. So if you create multi-level IVRs, you can add additional, but you'll always have the root, which is the one that you need to configure at first. So within here, you have the option to first of all specify your general settings. So general settings is what's important here is whether this IVR is active always, or if you have specific business hours. So in order to set that, you'll click on edit, and then you can say, all right, this is always active by default, or you can say, well, this IVR is only available. So check the only available at the following time intervals, add, and then you specify, you build sort of your office hours or out of office hours call flow here. And then once you've specified your time period, you can go and say, well, during the inactive time, I want this to forward to an external number, or I want to transfer it to an extension that goes to a voicemail. So there's a few options that you can select for when the IVR is inactive. So for this demonstration, I'm just going to say that this IVR is always active. So whenever you dial the number, you're going to hit the IVR. Then we get to the prompts, so the middle card. So this would be where you upload the actual audio file that says, hey, welcome to Breeze Connect. For sales, press 0, for accounts, press 1, and for support, press 2. So you can also split those messages. So you can have a little bit of an intro message, and then you can have your default, your main sort of menu item. So why would you use something like this? Well, let's say you have a standard recording that's gonna be uploaded as your main menu item. Right, so I'm just going to update that. So now I have my, welcome to Breeze Connect for X, Y, and Z, press 1, 2, or 3. But let's say it's like it's holiday season, or we have a promotion running. I can actually go and add an intro before the main menu. So there's an option to add like an extra sort of recording as an intro if you want to promote a specific service or a product, or it's a holiday message maybe that you want to set. So there is the option of doing that, but that's where you would upload your prompts. Then input errors, that's just what's going to happen if the user inputs the wrong inputs, or they don't actually do anything, so they don't select an option. So by default, it's just after 3 errors, it's going to disconnect the call. And then the important bit will be your actions menu. So the actions menu is where you'll go and configure your actions. So for instance, 0 to 9 star and hash, or no input. So for this example, I'm just going to say, well, my recording says for Breeze Connect support, you have to press 2. So I'll say on event, press 2. I want you to transfer the call, and I want you to transfer the call to the ring group number, which is 800. But we've also created a call queue. So instead of just pushing it straight to the ring group, if I actually want to make use of that call queue that I created in the previous step, I'll just say my action is to go to call queue, and then I select the call queue that was created, and then I create. So there I have a fully functional IVR now. If I phone the IVR, it's going to say, welcome to Breeze Connect. And then for support, press 2. Once I press 2, it's going to push the call into the call queue. The call queue is going to check the ring group and see how many agents are available in the ring group. And then if it finds that there are available agents, the call just goes straight into the ring group and follows the ring group settings. But if all agents in the ring group is currently busy, the call is going to sit in the queue until an agent becomes available. And then once the agent's available, the call will go through the queue into the ring group and then ring the extensions. Now, under the actions, you do have the option to add multiple events. Oh, sorry, not multiple events, multiple actions. So you can either dial by directory, transfer to extension, to ring group, to another IVR, so whatever sort of short code we have on the system, or you can transfer to an external number, or you can prompt for an extension, disconnect the call. You can actually go to a different auto attendant, so that multi-level IVR if you want to, or your call queue. So you can just play around with the options that you have. Point that I'm trying to make here is that there are multiple options for your key presses. And then for each of these actions, you also have an option to add another recording. So here you can, for instance, say press 1 for sales, and then you can upload a prompt here that says, as it goes through to the sales queue or the sales ring group, you can have another prompt that plays that says, hey, to speed up the support process or to speed up your account query, please make sure that you have your invoice with your invoice number and account details on hand. So that also gives you the option to add those additional sound files. Right. So that's it for the auto attendant. As I go down the list, the DIDs is just a page to manage all of your DIDs. So if you want to move DIDs between accounts, you have the option to just select the DID and hit transfer, and then select the service that you want to move the trunk. The service that you want to move the DID between. So this is like a DID management page. And then we also have fax to email services. So this is purely fax to email service, right? So what you're going to do is, if you want to add a fax to email service, you click on the add button. I'll just call this Breeze Support Fax. Again, the billing reference is optional, and then you specify the email that you want to send the fax to. As I hit next, just step through the wizard, select the usual plans, and then create. Right, and there our fax to email account has been created. So on the summary page, we can view details pertaining to this specific account. There we can see the fax to email settings. You can disable it if you temporarily want to disable it and not use the service. And then you can manage the DIDs that's specific to this fax to email service. If there's any plans in the future, you can change the plans and then also view any and all call logs specific to this fax to email service. And then we have our extension devices page. So all of the devices that you link to extensions, you'll find in this list. And then you have your call logs page. Again, you have a call logs page per account that you create, whether that's extensions, ring groups, call queues. Each of those have their own dedicated call logs page that you can view. And then lastly, you have your billing tab. So on the billing tab is where you would find your customers' invoices. You can see how many outstanding or unpaid invoices they have. You have the option from here to add a credit card, and then also have that credit card checked for auto payments. So on the due date of the invoice, our system will automatically go and charge the card that we have on file. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to do that. It just makes your life a bit more easier if there's a card on file already. You can process a manual payment just directly from this page as well, and opt to not save the card if you don't want to. And then also something I don't think that a lot of our existing partners are aware of is on the billing page, you'll see by default the invoice type for customers is summary. So if the customer actually wants an itemized bill, so itemized bill just means on top of the existing info that you'll find on the invoice, we'll also actually add all of the calls made per extension, right, or per trunk. So you do have the option to switch that. To do that, you'll see there's an invoice type button that you can click, and then just switch between summary and itemized. Right. So you have that option. Your invoices tab will just show you all of the invoices, and you will be able to download the invoices from your transactions. You'll be able to see not only your calls, but you'll be able to see specific transactions related to this account. So all past payments that's been made, all the subscription charges that's been generated, any DID usage, the taxes for the invoices that's been generated. So you can sort of drill down into the specifics of the account's history in terms of payments, voice calls, subscriptions, DIDs, etc. So a very useful tool if you want to figure out what's happening in an account. Cool. And yeah, so we've gone a bit over time. So there's probably a lot more detail that we can go into, but I think for the sake of respecting everyone's time, I'm going to stop there. We do have some resources that we're going to be making available online as well, some in videos, instruction videos and stuff that you can watch and follow. And then obviously we're here to help. So if you do have any additional questions on top of this and what we'll discuss in the Q&A, you're more than welcome to reach out to the support team, and the guys will be happy to assist. So yeah, I'm going to park it for there. Arthur, you're going to take over from here and we look at a bit of Q&A and answer some questions.
Absolutely. So Adrian, thank you so much for that wonderful demonstration of the portal and its functionalities. So now we have a lot of questions in chat. So let's just go through those one by one. And all right, so let's just get started with the first question we have. So this question is by way, call queue, does it have listen in, barge in, all those features, etc.? So that feature currently is not available with the current release of hosted PBX. It will be made available hopefully in the future release. That will be something in our pipeline, but right now it's not there. Another question is for voicemail to email, is that voice to text? No, it's not. So voicemail to email is basically your voicemail audio file being sent to your email. So it's not voice to text. Next question we have is, what is a user? Is that an extension? So a user is an extension or the devices that are attached to those extensions. So each extension has an extension number and that extension is allocated to a user. Next question, can pay-as-you-go and plus plan mix, say reception, 4 receptions plus and for common area phones, which hardly make outgoing calls on pay-as-you-go plan? Absolutely. So each extension can have its own plan, and that's the model that we have. So each extension will have a plan allocated to it. So it can be a pay-as-you-go or a plus plan. So based on what the call volume is like for that user or for that device that you're using, you can assign the plan accordingly. Next question, what reports are available? Are they similar to 3CX? So when it comes to reporting, we have the call logs available, which are cumulative for the customer. Plus, we have call logs available per extension. There are payment and transaction logs also available. Apart from that, there are no other call logs or no other reports that you can generate, since there is no presence-based feature with hosted PBX, so there are no login and logout times that you have with hosted PBX. With 3CX, you have login, logout, presence, and all those things. So that's why you can pull those kind of reports. However, with hosted PBX, there are no login and logout times.
Yeah, Arthur, sorry to chime in there. I think it's important to note that if the customer's requirement that you're engaging and selling a service to is heavily focused on the reporting side, then yeah, you might just want to double check within the portal, like that you can extract all of the information, because there are certain things when it comes to specifically contact centers. So agents, their queue times logged in, logged out, statistics on calls answered and not answered, and average call times, those aren't reporting that we currently have available in the portal. So that's something to consider.
Exactly. So as Adrian mentioned, if the requirements of the customer are that of a contact center, it's better to recommend 3CX PBX rather than recommending hosted PBX. Hosted PBX is more suitable for small to medium businesses where the requirement is that of call routing, and essentially that's how their calls work, and they're not highly dependent upon different kinds of reports or presence information. Next question. How much is the hardware that is the handsets? So when it comes to hardware, you can purchase those directly from the leader dealer shop. Breeze Connect does not really supply any kind of hardware. Next question, is a seat a person or an extension? For example, a conference room phone or warehouse phone that barely gets used, is that a seat? Now, an extension is basically a seat, and each extension gets an extension number. So now you can have multiple devices registered to the same extension. So at the end of the day, multiple devices can receive calls using the same extension number. So there is the call forking functionality that is available. Next question. Is there a mobile app like 3CX, or do we need to use a third-party mobile app? Now, we are actually working on making a mobile application available, a Breeze Connect soft phone available. We are expecting that to be available by the end of this year. So so basically what I'm trying to say here is it's in the pipeline. We are working on it, and it will be made available soon. But currently, there is no soft phone available from Breeze Connect, so you will have to use a third-party mobile app. So you can use Zoiper or Bria, and your Breeze Connect extension will work perfectly with those third-party apps.
Yeah, just to again, Arthur, just to chime in on that as well. We actually have a WebRTC version soft phone available for desktop. We have the iOS soft phone app is already finished developed, and then the Android version is in development, and we're just still testing out, making sure everything is good. So for now, you'll have to make use of third-party apps. As Arthur said, many of these have been tried and tested and work well, but again, we don't have control over those apps because it's not apps that we've made available. So at any given time, a change or an update that they push can potentially cause issues. But for the most part, and in our testing and use over the last few years, it works well. But yes, we do have our own soft phones that are in development and busy being tested, which will be available hopefully by the end of this year.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Adrian. So we have another question. Can we get discounted pay-as-you-go accounts for demonstration? We can make discounted or NFR accounts available. That's something that we have to discuss, but it shouldn't be too hard. We can make that available for testing for partners. We have another question. We have to put customer details. I don't want Breeze Connect to reach out directly to customer ever. I should always be the one reaching out. So we never reach out to the customer. We only reach out to the customer if their account is about to be suspended due to non-payments of invoices. And that's the only time we would reach out to the customer. So partner is always the contact point for the customers, and the customers will always be reaching out to the partner before they ever reach out to Breeze Connect. Now, if you want the invoices not to go to the customer directly, you can add your own email address onto the customer account where you would be receiving the invoices, and you can forward those invoices to the customer. So that's definitely possible. But please be assured that we never actually reach out to the customer. It's only in the scenario where the account is going to get terminated or suspended. So next question is, credit limit effect, do credit limit affect the incoming calls as well? So credit limit does not affect the incoming calls. It's only the calls that generate any form of charge. They are the ones that are affected by the credit limit.
So sorry, Arthur, just to add to that does apply to 1300, because on 1300 calls coming in, those do have charges associated. So if it's just a standard DID, incoming calls will work fine. But if it's a 1300 number and the account suspended, because those generate charges, there's no credit left to actually process those calls, so they won't work.
Correct. So any call that generates any charge, those are the ones that get affected by credit limit. Next question is, how are calls charged if users on Plus made the outgoing calls and then transferred to the pay-as-you-go user? So when the call is made by the Plus user, it's an outgoing call, then it gets accounted for into the Plus account. And when the call is then transferred to the pay-as-you-go user receives it as an incoming call. And the charges get accumulated on the plus user. Adrian, can you, if that's correct, can you confirm that? That the pay-as-you-go user does not really incur any charge in that case, in case of a call transfer?
That's a really good question. I will need to double check that, but because the Plus originally made the call, it will be included under the Plus plan. Yeah, and when it goes over to the pay-as-you-go extension, that's something that we'll just have to double check.
Yeah, but our best guess on this would be that the pay-as-you-go user receives that as an incoming call. That's why it does not incur any charges on that. However, the outgoing call was made through the Plus plan, and that's why the Plus extension is the one that incurs the charge on it.
Yeah, my how can I put this? Thinking about it, the call, the Plus plan, the system keeps track of the original leg of the call that was the Plus that made the outbound call. So it being transferred to the pay-as-you-go, that leg of the call won't be charged, but on the Plus plan itself, for the duration when that call ends, the system will sort of count that towards the minutes of the Plus plan, of the extension that's using the Plus plan. So, but that's just something that we'll double check. But as far as I know, those minutes will be counted towards the Plus plan, not the extension that it's being transferred to.
Awesome. Our next question is, we need Grandstream phones added to hosted PBX. I believe we currently don't have Grandstream phones in the pipeline for hosted PBX, but that's something that we will be discussing internally and see if that can be arranged. Our next set of phones or next brand that we are going to be adding to hosted PBX is Fanbill. So we'll try to make Fanbill auto provisioning available on hosted PBX. However, if you want to use Grandstream phones, you can still manually register them to an extension and still use them with hosted PBX. Next question is, are any Wi-Fi connected desk phones available? So right now we have T5 model available for auto provisioning. So T5W, so T53W, T54W. So those handsets are Wi-Fi handsets and they can be used with hosted PBX. So yes, you can use those two Wi-Fi devices with hosted PBX. Plus, you have, I believe, Yelling WF 40 and 50 that makes the device, the Yelling phones, Wi-Fi compatible. So you can still use the devices that are not originally Wi-Fi compatible and make them Wi-Fi compatible using the Yelling WF 40 or 50 and use them with hosted PBX. So yeah, that's possible. Our next question is, what is the caller ID if you don't have a DID assigned? Now, if no DID has been assigned, the caller ID is sent as private, or basically it's sent as the extension ID itself. Now, that becomes a problem when the call is going out to external entities because that caller ID is not really accepted upstream. So you need to make sure that you assign a valid caller ID to an extension or globally to the customer account for the calls to work properly.
Yeah, I think for the most part, the appropriate answer to that question is it's most likely going to get rejected because it's not going to be an accepted caller ID. Yep.
Our next question is, does this system have a mobile phone app? So we have already addressed that question. It is in the pipeline. We are currently testing it and we hope to make that available soon. But you can currently use third-party soft phone apps, which are Zoiper and Tria. We have tested those applications and they work absolutely fine with hosted PBX. Our next question is, if you have a customer who has mobile failover or a pure mobile internet connection, how well does the hosted platform work on these connections? Does the registration time need to be reduced, etc.? So as long as you have proper internet connectivity, there shouldn't be any problem when connecting to hosted PBX, because hosted PBX, first of all, is hosted in cloud and you're not registering it to an on-premise solution. So yeah, as long as voice.breezeconnect.com.au or BreezeConnect registrar server is accessible by the device, it should work absolutely fine. However, there are certain requirements when it comes to speed and the bandwidth that should be available. If I'm not wrong, it should be 100 kbps per channel. Adrian, is that the requirement?
Yeah, so that depends on codecs that's being used, but yeah, 100 kbps is fine. Would be more than
So if
sufficient.
you're using a high quality codec, that tends to consume more bandwidth. So make sure you're using the appropriate codec for voice quality. So if you have limited bandwidth available when it comes to calls, then try to use a low quality codec, which can be G729. But if you have ample of bandwidth available, in that case, you can use a codec which is a high quality codec such as G711 ALO, and you get the optimum voice quality with that. Next question is, what is the dial pattern for hosting? So the dial pattern or the dialing format that we use is E164 format. So that's the format that we expect to be used with hosted PBX. Next question is, how do you add a PC and mobile phone to the devices for an extension? So you have the authentication details available on the extensions summary page. So you can manually register a web client or a soft phone to the hosted extension using those authentication details. So any SIP account or SIP apps that are available, they can manually register to hosted PBX using the authentication details, which you can see on your screen now. So Adrian's sharing his screen. So those are the auth details. That's the auth username. And right below that is the password. So you can manually register an extension to a soft client. Our next question is, does the auto attendant allow for holiday periods? So you can configure multiple auto attendants, and definitely you have time switching functionality also available. So you can define when's a holiday, and based on that, you can configure the route of the call. So yes, auto attendant does functionality is available based on the configuration that you do for the holiday period. Next question is there a global phone book? Currently, I believe there is
No.
not. However, Adrian, is that something that's something that we are going to
Yes.
be working on?
Yes,
Okay,
that is something that we're working on. Yes.
perfect. So global phone book is something that we'll be making available in the future. So yeah, so our dev and infrastructure team is working on that. For the input errors, what is the message the caller receives? So what kind of input errors, that totally depends upon, and depending upon that, those are the messages you receive. If the caller is busy, then you receive the busy notification. If you're making input errors with regards to, let's say you're dialing a wrong number, then in that case, whatever message that is received from upstream, that's something that gets passed on to the user.
Yeah, I think if the question is specific to the input errors on the auto attendant, so there are defaults for on timeout and unavailable. You can also create your own custom input error prompts for the auto attendant specifically. That's if the question is related to auto attendant specifically, but you can go and add your own custom responses there instead of using the default that comes with the system.
Perfect. When auto attendant transfers to external number, how are the calls charged? So in that case, you incur the pay-as-you-go charges. So the call charges are pretty standard, 14 cents for mobile calling with 14 cents flag fall. For national and local calls, you get charged 9 cents untimed. And those are the call charges you incur when you use an auto attendant for call forwarding or sending a call to an external number.
Yep, and that will be the same for ring groups as well. So the plus plans are essentially only on the extensions. Any other service on the portal that you're forwarding to an external will be charged standard breeze rates.
Next question is, do we get demo license for trial? That's something that we can make available. If you require a demo extension, what you can do is you can just send an email to help@breezeconnect.com.au, and in that case, we can make an extension available for you for NFR plan. Next question is, does hosted support call flows that can be activated or deactivated by the customer? That is day or night mode. So what you can do is you have a proper time switching functionality that's available with hosted PBX. So based on the time of the day, you can route calls differently. So yes, that functionality is available, and it's something that happens automatically once you configure that. Now, if you're planning or hoping that this can be activated or deactivated by the customer, currently that's something that cannot be activated or deactivated by the customer. Customer needs to reach out to you in order to make changes to that. But yes, in the future, that is something we are planning to make a portal available for the customer where they would be able to achieve that. Next question is, does fax to email work in reverse for email to fax? Unfortunately, we do not have that functionality, which is email to fax. So yeah, that functionality doesn't really work. Our next question is, does Breeze Connect have a soft phone option? We have already addressed that. That's something that we are working on and should be made available soon. Next question is, for auto payment, is there a fee? There is no surcharge or no extra fee for automatic payment, so you don't have to worry about that. Our next question is it a case of contacting support to transfer a customer from SIP trunk to hosted PBX type? I'm not sure I understand the question.
So yeah, it's two separate account types. So we can't do a migration or just change a switch for a customer to convert them. So ultimately, what would need to happen is if you would like to move a SIP trunking customer to hosted PBX, then you'll have to create that customer as a hosted PBX customer, create your extensions, and then all you have to do is from the SIP trunking customer profile, you can do a migration of your DIDs from your SIP trunks over to the extensions. So it's not like a migration thing that we can handle or do on our end to switch those. You'll literally have to just recreate the customer with their extensions and their setups. Once you're happy with that, you can just transfer the DIDs between the two accounts.
Correct. So yeah, if you're planning to move your customer from SIP trunking to hosted PBX, all you have to do is, as Adrian mentioned, create the customer again as a hosted customer and then do the configuration and the call flow configuration. And once you're happy with that, you can transfer the DIDs from the SIP trunks to the hosted extensions. Our next question is, are there any plans for integration with Microsoft 365 for extensions? That is, create a new extension when a new Microsoft 365 user is created. Currently, we have no plans of any Microsoft 365 integration. So this is something that we can discuss internally and see if that can be made possible, but currently we don't have any plans in moving in that direction. Next question is this using 3CX in the background? No, it's not. It's using our own soft switch and our own infrastructure, and that's where it's actually being hosted. It's not using 3CX in any way whatsoever. Next question is, do you have information about how to port in the customer existing numbers? So we follow a very simple process for porting. You just have to send out an email to help@breezeconnect.com.au with the information of the customer. So where you provide the customer name, you provide the ID of the extension or the ring group or wherever you want to host the number or where you want the number to sit. It can be a ring group or a auto attendant, wherever you want the number to sit, you share the information of that or the ID of that. Then you share their customer's latest invoice with their current carrier and a signed PAF form, porting authority form. So porting authority form is available on our website. So you just have to go to breezeconnect.com.au/PAF, and then you can access the porting authority form from there. So once you share that information with us, we process the porting request for you. Next question is there an option for web meetings? Currently, there is no option for web meetings. We also don't have that in the pipeline, to be honest. That's something we can definitely take on board as a feature request, and we can see if we can work on that. Our next question is, are there specific soft phones that are supported? So yeah, you can use Zoiper or Bria. Those soft phones are third-party applications. You can definitely use them with hosted PBX. So next question is, would you mind sharing what platform the hosted PBX solution is built on? So our infrastructure is hosted in Oracle Cloud, and that's where our soft switch is hosted. And on top of that is we are hosting our hosted PBX solution. Next question is, can you put office hours for an extension? Absolutely. You can configure time switching for an extension. So that's definitely possible. Next question is, do you support both fax to email and outbound fax, such as email to fax? So unfortunately, we don't have email to fax functionality available. Next question is, do you have information on how to set up softphone? So as I explained earlier, all you need are the authentication details of the extension, and you use the registrar server voice.breezeconnect.com.au in order to register the extension onto the soft client.
Yeah, what we can do, Arthur, is we can maybe see next week if we can just do a basic setup, record a video of a basic setup on something like Zoiper and Bria/Counterpath, and then make that available with the rest of the training material that we have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So just so you know that we are making training material also available for you all on Lead Academy. We hope that it will go live by the end of the day today, or at least by Monday. It should be available on Lead Academy. So there are different tutorials or training videos that you can go through on how to set up a customer, up till how to set up an auto attendant or a call queue, ring group. So all that is there in the training videos. Plus, we can record a video for this for setting up a soft phone with hosted PBX, and we can share that as well on Lead Academy. Next question is, when adding extensions to ring groups, can you add these by the name rather than the auth ID? So when you're adding extensions to the ring groups, you actually add them based on the name. If I'm not wrong, Adrian, can you just show that whole process again on adding extensions to a ring group?
That will be on the extension.
Yeah.
So the actual account. So all of the services have specific accounts. So once you actually start looking at the accounts, you'll start noticing that there's a pattern. So BC for Breeze Connect, and then the next digits will be, so EX is extension, RG is ring group, CQ, call queue, and then a customer account, and then the actual extension number is the last 3 digits. So, but I do understand the question and what's being asked here. So that's something I can take back to the dev team to see if we can add an additional column in there that would show the actual username that was configured during the extension to make it a bit easier. So currently, no, it's the account ID there, but we can definitely make a plan to get the username in there as well.
Or we can have the extension number instead, if that's possible, Adrian.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. That's definitely something we can take to the development team to add.
Awesome. The next question is how to register a non-yielding phone like cordless or door phone. So these are to be registered manually. So you can manually register them using the credentials of the extension or the authentication details of the extension and add them manually onto the registration page of the device. Our next question is, any chance of recording of calls for quality control? So we have call recording functionality that's available. However, when it comes to quality control, Adrian, do we have any feature where it shows the call quality?
I'm not sure if that is what the question asks. I'm to be honest also not 100% sure what the question means by call recording for call quality control.
So I believe what they are inquiring about is if there is a way that we can show the call quality as well of the calls that go through Breeze Connect infrastructure. But yeah, that is something that's not available right now. I'm not sure if we can make that available, to be honest. But yeah, but yes, you do have call recording functionality, and you can definitely record calls if you require that functionality for a user.
Yeah, so I see there are a few questions regarding the call quality functionality. So I think if I can address those in one go. So in the current state, the call recording is enabled or disabled per extension. So it's not based on the caller ID or a select switch that you can turn it on and off. So it's either the call recording is enabled on the extension or it's disabled. And when it is enabled, it records both incoming and outgoing and transferred calls. So any call, whether that's inbound, outbound, or transferred, is being recorded for that specific extension. Now, the system does have the ability to actually toggle whether or not you just want to record inbound or just outbound or a combination thereof, including transferred calls, but we've not made that available in the initial release of the portal. But if that is a function that you are after, then that's definitely something that we can look at. But in the current state, it's enabled, disabled per extension. And if it is enabled, it records any direction.
Awesome. Okay, so David has clarified what the question was. So he was basically asking if we can record the phone call. So yeah, call recording is definitely available. So you can record phone calls. And you can download the call recording from the portal itself. Yeah, if you want to see or hear the call, you can definitely do that. So you can download the call recording and listen to that. All right. So moving on to the next question. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just filter out the questions that have not been answered yet and just address those really quick. So how many simultaneous calls can be handled? So each extension has 3 channels available for it. So they can handle 3 simultaneous calls at a time. Now, when it comes to a ring group, if a call is going through a ring group, we have made 5 channels available. However, that can be increased, but that will definitely incur a charge. So if you want to increase the number of channels on a ring group, you can reach out to us and we can make that available.
Yeah, and then just to sort of put that in perspective, so we have 3 channels per extension. Most handsets offer 3-way conference local as a local feature on the phone. So in order to support those features, we have to make those channels available, but we won't be increasing the number of channels that we give per extension, as this is, limited to a user's use. So we initially wanted to only have 2, but because of the local call conferencing support on phones like Yailing, for instance, we've increased that to 3. But that would allow a user to answer an inbound call, place that call on hold, get a next incoming call, place that call on hold, essentially make an outbound call. So that gives the user the flexibility to juggle calls in terms of inbound and outbound and transferring. So yeah, in short, 3 channels per extension.
Yeah. All right. Next question is, will there be a recording from today's webinar made available? Yes, it will be made available. It will be sent out to everyone tomorrow or by Monday. So yeah, the recording you will receive the recording. If you do not receive the recording by the end of the day on Monday, send me an email. My email address is arthur.goyal@leadersystems.com.au. I'll also share that in chat. So in case you do not receive the recording, I can send that to you. All right. So moving on to the next question. Can you use one extension for multiple users making outbound calls? Unfortunately not. Each extension has its own handset, and basically you won't be actually using one single user for making outgoing calls. So each user has one handset, and that's the handset that the user uses to make outgoing calls. So you can't register multiple users onto one single extension or one single device.
Well, it depends. You can register the extension on multiple devices, and if those devices are different users, then yes. But keep in mind that you're limited to the channels on the extension itself. So if you want to register one extension to 10 different phones or 15 phones, then that's not going to be the best way to implement that. That would rather be using SIP-trunk, the SIP-trunk based service. But ideally, the implementation here would be extension per user, but that extension can be used on multiple devices for that specific user. So if the user has a desk phone, a soft phone on the computer, and a soft phone on their mobile, the idea would be that that account can be provisioned to multiple endpoints for that specific user.
Correct. So yeah, so the idea is that each user has one single device, or even if they want, they can have multiple devices allocated to them, but we don't want multiple devices a single device being used by multiple users, because then it defeats the whole purpose of hosted PBX. The idea behind hosted PBX is one user, one extension. And in that case, if you plan to use one single extension for multiple users, a SIP trunk solution is better suited for this kind of scenario. So next question is, can you send or transfer calls to mobile? Absolutely, you can. As we have shown in the demonstration, that's definitely possible. You can transfer calls to mobile. Next question is it planned to have like auto provisioning of extension from QR code for the future Breeze iOS or Android app? That's something that we have. I don't think we'll be actually making a QR code for auto provisioning available. We still need to go into detail about how the auto provisioning would work. Adrian would be more aware of it if he wants to share something about it.
Yeah. At this point, QR codes is not on the table. It's not really something that we've had a discussion about, but it doesn't say that it's not something that we can look at implementing in the future. But as far as the development track is concerned, there's a few things that we want to get in place for auto provisioning first before we would look at enhancing on the auto provisioning functionality. And I would see the QR code more as an enhancement to the feature. So we're still in the process of getting the feature in its full out. And then once that's done, we can definitely have a discussion around implementing QR codes as well.
All right. Next question. So if incoming call goes through a call queue IVR that has a charge for that service, that won't work if credit limit is exceeded. So if there is an incoming call that goes through a call queue or an IVR, the charge for the call queue or an IVR is a one-time charge. It's not something that is generated every time a call goes through them. So you don't have to worry about credit limit in that case. But if the credit limit gets exceeded and there is an additional charge of call queue or IVR that is going to be added onto the credit limit, your calls would stop working. It would be affected. Next question is, I currently have a SIP trunk linked with two DIDs. They are showing as registered. Should it be showing as active? So that is something that I will have to check. Second. So it's the SIP trunk that shows up as registered. However, the DIDs, they always show up as active. So if they are showing up as reserved, that means your DIDs are actually assigned to the customer account and not to the trunk. So you need to make sure that the DID is actually is allocated to the trunk. Otherwise, your DIDs won't work. So your DIDs need to be allocated to the trunk, and then only it will show up as active. Otherwise, they'll always show up as reserved. All right, next question. Can call recording be enabled for specific call ID only? Unfortunately, I believe that feature is not available. Adrian, can you confirm that?
Yes, no, it's enabled per extension.
Perfect.
So even if the extension, you can't switch between caller IDs for the extension, so that it's also won't change the behavior. So yeah, as mentioned previously, the call recording is enabled or disabled per extension, and once it's enabled, it covers all calls in, out, and transferred.
All right. Next question is, our call recording cost plans per extension, that is 2 extension means 2 call recording plans, and that is correct. So each call recording plan is per extension. Our next question is there BLF support? So BLF support is currently not there. In our future release, it will be made available. So we are definitely working on it, and that's something we can definitely make available in the future release. Next question is, can calls be set up to record only inbound? Now, I believe that is not available as a feature. So if you have call recording added as a feature onto an extension, it records all calls. If you don't have a call recording plan associated with an extension, it doesn't record any calls. But call recording is a feature that's either available or not available to an extension. Next question is, do you have New Zealand DIDs? You can order New Zealand DIDs through us, or you can port in New Zealand DIDs as well on Breeze Connect. So yes, that's available. And yeah, that brings us to the end of the Q&A. So if you guys have any questions, just feel free to send me an email on arthur.goel@leadersystems.com.au. I've shared that in the chat box. But yeah, we Can't really answer any more questions as we have exceeded the time. When it comes to increasing the commission tier to 15%, what we are going to do is we are just going to go through the attendee list, and either by the end of the day today or by the end of the day Monday, the commission tier for the ones that have commission tier less than 15%, it would be increased or bumped up to 15%. For those who have attended the training but are not currently Breeze Connect partners, you have a chance to get 15% commission straight away. So just sign up as a Breeze Connect partner today, and once your sign up has completed, we'll increase your partner commission to 15%. And for those who already have 15% commission tier, you are eligible for a price draw, and that is for a Yearling BH72 headset. So what we are going to do is we are going to be drawing the prize after the webinar. We'll be sharing the results of the winner on our Leader IP Telco Facebook page. So if you haven't already joined the group, please go ahead, join our Facebook group, and we'll be sharing the results of the winner on that group. Awesome. So yeah, thank you so much everyone for joining. I hope this has been informative for you. And if you have any questions after the webinar, feel free to send us an email. You can send us an email on help@breezeconnect.com.au, or you can reach out to me as well on my email address, which is arthur.goel@leadersystems.com.au. So anyone who has, so if you're not on the Facebook page, if you're not a Facebook user, if you win the prize, we will reach out to you, right? However, when it comes to public announcement, we'll be announcing the winner on the Facebook page. Or what we can do is I can also announce the winner through the recording that will be sent out to all the attendees. In that email, I'll be sharing the results of the winner as well. So I'll do that. Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I'll go ahead and end the webinar now. And for any questions, feel free to reach out to us.